We are together with the great Rabbi Shmuly Botnick, my brother-in-law. He's been on the podcast before. He's developed a reputation for himself with, tremendous genius and Torah knowledge. And he sends me a text and he says, Yaakov, I have something so special I got to share with you for the month of Cheshvan. We know that the months that we have, there's of course, January, February, secular Gregorian calendar, the Jewish calendar. We have actually Persian names. We're now Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan, the first day of Cheshvan. And Rabbi Botnick prepared an exquisite message, or actually the truth is I don't even know what he prepared. Usually he sends me his notes ahead of time. I don't know. I'm coming in blind. But he prepared something really wonderful and delightful and brilliant, as he has demonstrated in the past. And we said, let's just get together and we'll record it and we'll share it with the world. And again, it's so wonderful to have you here, Rabbi Botnick. Thank you so much for coming here and sharing your brilliance and your wisdom with us.
All right, anytime, Rabbi Wolbe. Thank you for having me. So Cheshvan, it's kind of a fun month to work with because there's really nothing obvious about it. It doesn't have any holiday. So if you're going to talk about Kislev, it's kind of a slam dunk that you're going to get some Hanukkah in there. But Cheshvan, you have no idea where I'm going to go because there's really nothing guiding you in terms of what the specific uniqueness of the month is.
So we just finished the month of Tishrei that has all the festivals, Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur and Sukkot and all the appendaged festivals to that. That's a packed month, a lot of going on. You look at the Jewish calendar, month of Cheshvan, nothing going on.
Nothing at all going on. And the little we do know seems to be rather negative. So let's just start with the zodiac sign, which is always a good place to start. So it's called Scorpio in English, or in Hebrew it's Akrev, which means scorpion. And that's not just a symbol, as we know that every month it has some sort of character that is being portrayed in through the zodiac sign, and that really defines its spiritual significance. So an Akrev has a very negative connotation. We are taught that a scorpion has a more of a venomous or more of a murderous bite than a snake does. That's what the Talmud tells us. So you got to ask yourself, if the zodiac sign that governs in Cheshvan is a scorpion, what does that mean for us? Is there any sort of positive message?
If we could just slow down here, just dumb it down for me. We actually believe in this astrology. We believe in the zodiac stuff.
So I think we
is that real?
Well, we predate it because it's all recorded in what's called the Sefer Yetzirah, which we don't know exactly where that comes from, but we know that it's extremely ancient. It predates the Zohar by centuries. So I think we predate whatever the Greek Catholicism is about the zodiac signs. So yeah, I think it definitely has a Jewish source to it.
But again, to clarify, the zodiac sign of this month coincides with, the Greek mythology of this month as well. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Scorpio.
So
okay.
Scorpio is Akrev, which is Cheshvan.
Okay.
All right, so that
and that reveals, can we say, that reveals some of the power, some of the opportunity, some of the essence of the month.
Yes, it does. And the Sefer B'nai Yisachar, which it's kind of the go-to Sefer whenever you're trying to uncover the secret of a month. He always starts with the zodiac sign, so he jumps right into it, right at the beginning of his chapter on this month, and begins with the idea of the Akrev, trying to understand what its inner meaning is. And that's how that's kind of what's going to guide us through our share today, is also, what is this Akrev? What is this scorpion? What does it mean? And what can we learn from it? Sounds good, Rabbi Wolbe?
I'm excited. Let's go.
All right. So, interestingly, it's not all negative. The B'nai Yisachar, which I just mentioned, also quotes a very obscure medrash, which is almost overly positive. And he quotes this medrash, which is in the Yalkut in Malachim, which says that we're taught in the Navi that Shlomo HaMelech inaugurated the Beis HaMikdash, the first temple which he built. He inaugurated it in the month of Tishrei, All right, so they celebrated, it was right around Sukkot time when they celebrated the inauguration of the first Beis HaMikdash. The Bnei Yissaschar quotes a medrash that says, originally he had actually finished building the Beis HaMikdash in the month of Cheshvan, our month, and then he got some sort of heavenly message which said, do not inaugurate the Beis HaMikdash just yet, wait another year, or right under a year. He waited another 11 months and inaugurated the Beis HaMikdash in Tishrei. And Hashem said, all right, Cheshvan, I feel bad for you because you missed an opportunity to be the month of the Beis HaMikdash. So I'm going to pay you back with the Bayis Shlishi. So the third temple, which will be built hopefully very soon, is going to be built in the month of Cheshvan, or at least inaugurated in the month of Cheshvan. So says the Bnei Yissaschar in the name of the Yalkut.
Okay, so we just finished the month of Tishrei, the month that has all the festivals. That is the same month that Solomon dedicated, inaugurated temple, the first temple. It was actually finished, it was complete, it was ready to go the previous year in the month of Cheshvan, which is the month that comes right after Tishrei, but they put it on ice for 11 months to wait for Tishrei. But as a consolation prize, the third temple will be built or will be inaugurated in the month of Cheshvan. Now, what month was the second temple inaugurated in? Do we know that?
Yeah, so the Bnei Yissaschar tells us that the inauguration of the second temple is considered to be on Hanukkah, because that's, I guess, I don't fully understand it just yet. Maybe we'll talk about it in Kislev. But because that's when the miracle happened, and that's when they were able to, I guess, really bring some element of Shekhinah down to the second Beis HaMikdash, because we know the second Beis HaMikdash was really void of Shekhinah. The one time that there was this divine appearance was on Hanukkah, so it's considered that Kislev is the inauguration of.
So even though the Hanukkah miracle happened a couple of decades, really centuries, into the second temple era, the actual inauguration is in the story of Hanukkah, which is in the month of Kislev, which is the month that comes after the current month of Cheshvan. But temple number 3, which coincides with Messiah, is that right?
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah, so temple number 3 is going to be inaugurated in the month of Cheshvan.
Right, which, I mean, once you're on that, it's just interesting to note that those are 3 consecutive months, right? So that's Tishrei is 1, Cheshvan is 3, and Kislev is 2. This is not the topic of this year, but that in itself has a lot of significance, because the first Beis HaMikdash is Avraham Avinu, the second Beis HaMikdash is Yitzchak, the third is Yaakov, and Kabbalistically, Yaakov is considered to be in between his father and his grandfather. He's situated spiritually in between Avram and Yitzchak, and that's why the month of Cheshvan, which is the third Beis HaMikdash, is in between Tishrei and Kislev. But that's not the topic of this year. Okay. So moving along. One very significant episode that occurred in the month of Cheshvan is also a very bizarre and a very tragic episode that we learn about in Malachim, and that's the story of Yeravam ben Nevat. So I can give you a quick rundown of the story. Rabbi Wolbe could probably give you a better rundown. Do you want to try? Or
no, you go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Don't put me in the spot here.
In a nutshell, Yeravam ben Nevat was from the tribe of Ephraim. So he's a descendant of Yosef. So Ephraim was the son of Yosef. He has his own tribe, and Yeravam descends from him. He was something of an affiliate of Shlomo HaMelech. So Shlomo HaMelech is the son of David HaMelech, and Shlomo HaMelech at the time was the king. And for various reasons, it's complicated exactly what Shlomo did wrong, but Hashem he's displeased with Shlomo. And he sends him a message saying that since you did these various devious acts, the kingship is going to be torn away from you. That's the message that Shlomo is sent. Yeravam then approaches Shlomo. I'm not sure if Yeravam was aware of this prophecy or not. Either way, he seems to have been the divine messenger to carry out the prophecy. He approaches Shlomo and he reprimands him for something which seems political. Apparently, Shlomo HaMelech had blocked off certain entranceways to Yerushalayim. made it more difficult for people to enter Yerushalayim. They had to go through like the central gateway, and then they got taxed, so it was financially draining on the people. And basically, Yeravam, he rakes him out over this, and he hollers at him, "How can you do this to the people?" And the way the pasuk describes it, it says, "V'zeh hadavar asher heirim yad b'melech Shlomo." Upon this issue, Yeravam lifted his hand to the king Shlomo. Okay, the Talmud comments on that lifting his hand means he removed his tefillin. All right, and this is going to have some significance down the road. So Yeravam approaches Shlomo HaMelech. He reprimands him for this controversial political move. In doing so, he removes his tefillin. And the next thing we know is as follows. Shlomo dies. His son Rechavam takes his place. And at this point, Rechavam wants to be coronated as king. He travels to the city of Shechem, which we know the city of Shechem, that's a biblical city. Right? There's a lot of history to the city of Shechem. He travels there for the inauguration, but then enters Yeravam together with the entirety of the Jewish people, and they say, "No dice. You are not being the king unless you acquiesce to our demands." And they basically repeated their grievances about this political move that was taxing on the people. And they told Rechavam, "You cannot fulfill your father's place as king of the Jewish people unless you retract these policies." Rechavam then seeks guidance by the elder advisors, and they tell him that he should listen to the people. And then he goes to the younger advisors, and they say, "Absolutely not. Do not listen to the people." And here's what they say. Not only should you not listen to the people, you should tell them, "My father came at you, Avi Yisar Eschem Bashotim." My father came at you, I'm not sure what their shotim means exactly, he came at you with some sort of power of influence. Va'ani Ayaser Eschem Ba'akrabim. And I will come at you with scorpions. That should be your message to the Jewish people. And that's what he did. Rechavam, son of Shlomo HaMelech, responded to Yeravam's demands by saying, "I am going to attack you guys with scorpions if you continue your rebellion." Okay, it was a bad move on Rechavam's part. What happened next was that the Jewish people basically said, "All right, then, you're not our king." And they crowned Yeravam as their king. So now there's like an all-out war within the Jewish people. 10 tribes are with Yeravam. Obviously, that's the vast majority. 2 tribes remain with Rechavam in Yerushalayim. Now, all of this is really in line with the prophecy that God had issued to Shlomo HaMelech. He said, "I'm going to tear the kingship away from you," and that's what happened. So far, Yeravam really didn't do anything wrong. He was simply a divine messenger. But then things got really out of hand. The holiday of Sukkot was coming, and it was a Sukkot that's just like ours, meaning it was the year following Shemitah. In the year following Shemitah, on Sukkot, there's a very special event called Hakel, which is that the entirety of the Jewish people, men, women, and children, gather in the Beis HaMikdash, and the king reads the Torah to them. That happens once every 7 years. Yeravam starts freaking out as Sukkot approaches because he knows that all the Jews in his jurisdiction, all the Jews living in Shechem or elsewhere, are going to travel to Yerushalayim, where Rechavam is located. And they are going to witness this incredible event of the entire Jewish people hearing the king, Rechavam, read the Torah. And they're going to be impressed by it. And it's going to undermine Yeravam's entire rebellious or opposing kingdom. This fear completely overwhelms Yeravam. And he does what seems to be the most irrational thing one can imagine. He erects 2 golden calves and puts them in 2 cities. I guess near where he was situated. He moved the holiday of Sukkot away from Tishrei into the month of Cheshvan, our month. And he said, everyone from now on, Sukkot is in Cheshvan, it's not in Tishrei. And we are not going to go to the Beis HaMikdash. We're going to worship these two calves that are right here in our own backyard. And that was the great sin of Yeravam ben Nevat. And forever he goes down in history as one of the great sinners of Israel. So that, in a nutshell, is the horrifically tragic story of Yeravam ben Nevat. Rabbi Wilby, do you have anything to add or question?
So this is the great secession, when the northern tribes of Israel break away from the southern tribes of Judah, and that continues until we have the 10 lost tribes, where those 10 tribes are captured and sent to parts unknown by Sancheiriv. But this is where it starts. The two confusingly similarly named individuals become king. Solomon's son Rechavam, Solomon's, as you call it, affiliate Yeravam or Jeroboam, and then it somehow relates to our month. He's going to come out with Rechavam says, "I'm going to come at y'all with scorpions," and he moves the month of Sukkot, or the festival of Sukkot, to the 8th month.
Excellent. Right. So you already hear that we're heading somewhere. In other words, we already see there's got to be some significance to this month if he's choosing it to be the month in which he sees as the prime time to undermine and claim ownership over the entire kingdom of the Jewish people. He chooses Cheshvan to be that month, and again, it's in response to in response to Rechavam's threat to come at him with scorpions. So we're seeing the scorpion month of Cheshvan correlation, and it certainly means something. But I have 5 specific questions that I want to ask before moving on, and that is, we mentioned that Yeravam removed his tefillin. He lifted his hand, and the Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin that means he removed his tefillin. What does that mean? What does that signify?
This is when he was castigating Solomon.
Right. He was
for the taxes.
Right. So he removed his tefillin. Okay. A very important question here, a glaring question, is why did Rechavam travel to Shechem to be coronated? That doesn't seem to make any sort of sense. Because the city, the capital of Israel, always was Yerushalayim. And that's where he lived. And that's where the kingdom was. And that's where the kingdom always was and always should remain. So why on earth would you travel all the way to Shechem, which is not even in the territory of Yehuda, it's in the territory of Yosef, for the coronation? That doesn't seem to make any sense. Okay, my third question we already asked is what is the meaning of these scorpions that Rechavam's going to come out with? Okay, what is it about the Hakel experience that totally freaks Yeravam out? Like, why couldn't he just be cool and say, all right, we all know the score, right? I'm a king over 10 tribes. He's a king over 2 tribes. He's got Yerushalayim, so he's got the Beis HaMikdash. I mean, what's so terrifying about the fact that they're going to go to the Beis HaMikdash and watch Hakel? Why does he feel like that will completely overthrow his mission? And then I want to point, there's a very subtle terminology in the verse, which I don't know if I read to you earlier. It says that when he moved the holiday of Sukkot over to the month of Cheshvan, it refers to it as Bachodesh Asher Bada Mi Libo, the month that he just blurted out from his heart. I don't know, the word Bada is a very, very strange word, but basically it's a month that came from his heart. Very obscure term, and I'd like to try to understand what it all means. All right, Rabbi Wilby?
I love it. So we have 5 questions. Let's begin. What do we got?
I'm going to quote from a very great rabbi and Kabbalist who was actually Rabbi Wilby's ancestor, and that is the Megala Amukos. All right, his name was Rav Nasanata Shapiro, and he is where Rabbi Wilby gets all his brains from. The Megala Amukos reveals something very fascinating, and that is, if we recall this story in Parshas Vayeshev, one of the most famous biblical stories of Yosef and his brothers, right? Yosef and the multicolored coat. So we know that Yosef has these dreams. He tells them to his brothers. His brothers aren't all too happy about them, and they try to kill him. And they say, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't kill him. Let's just throw him into a pit full of deadly snakes and scorpions. And they do that, And we know the rest of the story is that they pull him out and send him to Mitzrayim. That's really the very beginning of Golus Mitzrayim. But the big question is, why did the brothers feel that Yosef was deserving of death? That's the big question. What did he do that was so terrible? And the Megala Mukas tells us that what the brothers saw when they looked at Yosef was they saw Yeravam ben Nevat. Yosef's descendant, Yeravam ben Nevat, who rebelled against the kingdom of David, the Malchus based David, they saw Yosef going through those motions. Right? And that's actually explicit in the verse, right? Because when he tells them about his dreams, about the stars bowing down to him, or the grain bowing down to him, they say to him, Hamaloch timloch aleinu? Are you going to become the king over us? And there was a depth there, meaning they really accused him of doing exactly what Yeravam did, which is robbing the kingship away from where it rightly belongs. It rightly belongs in Yehuda with David, and Yeravam tried to steal it away, and they felt that Yosef was doing the same thing. So they felt like Yosef was on the exact same track that Yeravam was on, and that is why they wanted to kill him. Now, another very interesting correlation, which is an easy one to make, is that both of them happen in Shechem, right? We know the story of Yosef and his brother happened in Shechem. That's an explicit verse. Vayavo Shechema. He went down to Shechem. And Rashi even points out that Shechem has a really bad track record. That is where the brothers sold Yosef. That is where the story of Dinah, where Dinah was kidnapped and raped by Shechem. And that is where the divide in the Malchus based David, that's where it occurred. So we see that this correlation between Yeravam and Yosef is actually striking. They seem to be almost going through the same motions and in the exact same place. Okay, so now we know that there is some sort of connection between Yosef and Yeravam. And that means we have to understand Yeravam on a slightly deeper level. And to do that, we're going to take a look at the Yalkut Reuveni, who brings down something chilling. He says that Moshe Rabbeinu davened to Hashem that Yeravam ben Nevat should be removed from the world. Get Yeravam out of here. He causes too much trouble. Because, right, Moshe Rabbeinu was obviously a prophet. He saw into the future. He saw the kind of catastrophe that Yeravam would bring on to the whole Jewish people, how you tear them apart, and he davened Hashem should remove him. And Hashem responded, no, I will not do that. He says that Yeravam will ultimately return. Yeravam will be misukan, he'll be fixed, and he will be Mashiach ben Yosef. And this is alluded to in the verse that we read in Parshas V'zos HaBracha. It says, "Vayihi bishur melech b'sasef Rosh Hayom yachad shivtei Yisrael." So says the Yalkut Reuveni that the words melech b'sasef Rosh Hayom yachad is Rosh Tevos Yeravam. So again, that verse means Vayihi bishur melech. There will be a king in Israel. B'sasef Rosh Hayom, when all of the leaders of the nation gathered together, yachad shivtei Yisrael, and there's absolute unity amongst the tribes of Israel. Then there will be a king, and the Rashi Tevos of those words spell Yeravam. So from there you see that even though he failed once, he will ultimately succeed. So Mashiach ben Yosef, who we know, we're taught that there's really two messiahs, right? There's the Mashiach ben David, who's the primary messiah. He will be the king when Mashiach comes with the third Beis Hamikdash, but kind of ushering in that era is another Mashiach called Mashiach ben Yosef, and that is the soul of Yeravam ben Nevat. Rabbi Wilby, is this clear and understandable?
It is. It's very interesting. I'm trying to see where you're going with this, but absolutely amazing. The connection between Joseph and Jeroboam and the terrible events that happen in Shechem and how it's kind of designated for tragedy. That's where the Davidic monarchy is going to be undone. That's where Joseph's going to get sold. And the brothers, when they looked at Joseph and they thought that he's trying to steal the monarchy, they actually kind of intuited Joseph's great great-great-great-great-grandson, who is Yeravam, who did the same thing. So that's what they're worried about. But then we're told that there's going to be the reclamation of Jeroboam. He's going to have a second appearance as the good version of him in the Messiah, the Mashiach ben Yosef, the Messiah from Joseph, who's going to kind of herald in the era of the actual Messiah ben David from the tribe of Judah. So this would be more like a complementary.
Great. So now, on the topic of this Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David, we don't know a lot. I know these are obviously very mysterious topics. Hopefully we'll get to understand them soon. But right now, these are all shrouded in mystery. But there is a prophecy in Yechezkel, which we read as the Haftorah in Parshas Vayigash, which you can't help but notice that it's clearly alluding to something that's going to be going on in the Messianic era. And what it says is like this. Hashem speaks to Yechezkel. And he says, Va'ata ben Adam, you, ben Adam, human being, take for yourself an eitz, a piece of wood, and write on it Yehuda. Uchsov alav Yehuda. B'levnei Yisrael. Then take another piece of wood. Ulekach eitz achad. Uchsov alav liYosef. Eitz Ephraim. L'chol beis Yisrael chaverav. Take a piece of wood and write, this one's for Yehuda. Take another one and write, this one's for Yosef. Then, the next verse says, V'karav osam echad al echad. Then bring them together, one to the other. L'cha le'etz echad, v'hayu la'achadim b'yachdacha. And they should become one in your hand. So you can figure this out yourself, but the Malbim lays it out very clearly, that this is referring to Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. And each one is its own each one is kind of its own universe, and ultimately, at the end of times, they will be brought together. So what we know here is that there's this Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. They seem to be somewhat incompatible with each other, but ultimately there will be a coming together of sorts, and there will be la'achadim b'yadacha, there will be one in your hand. Okay, so now we have to understand, what is it about Mashiach ben Yosef versus Mashiach ben David that makes it so difficult to unite the two? The Maharal in Netzach Yisrael, in chapter 37, explains that each Mashiach has its own function. And in his words, he says that the breakdown is as follows. V'heim keneged, he says like this, that the Mashiach ben David corresponds to the head. K'dechsev Yehuda Yala Berosh. So Yehuda is the head. Ki Malchus Yehuda neged Rosh. Yehuda corresponds to the head. V'Yosef Tamid Hu Be'emtza Keneged Halev. And Yosef is the heart. Yehuda is the head, and Yosef is the heart. And he says that typically all of the limbs of your body are going to unite around the heart. Right? The head is kind of aloof. It's above all of it. But the heart it's kind of with the people, right? It's within the body. It's encased within the body. And the natural course of events is that all of the limbs of the body will unite around the heart. So he says that Mashiach ben Yosef is the heart. And naturally, the Jewish people will gravitate towards it. And he says it will only be when the Jewish people reach a high level of spiritual aspiration or spiritual accomplishment, that they will be able to relate to Mashiach ben David, which is above all of that, which is the head. So there's this tension, division between the heart and the head. And that's the division between Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef. So the reason why Yeravam, who is clearly the more popular of the two, right, 10 out of 12 followed Yeravam, is because he was the heart of the Jewish people. Whereas Rechavam and Shlomo and David and that whole dynasty, they were the heads of the Jewish people. And that's the friction that we are dealing with here. And that's the friction that's going to have to be resolved when Mashiach comes. Does that make sense, Rabbi Wolbe?
It does, yes. The tension that exists over here is that we have the heart and that's Joseph, and that's if we're not operating on such a cognitive level, that is much more lofty, it's much more spiritual, it's much more distinct and removed, and therefore by default we're going to gravitate towards the heart, we're going to gravitate towards Joseph and Mashiach ben Yosef and Yeravam, who's from that side of the family. And only once we become very kind of supernally spiritual and we start to be governed by the brain, so to speak, then there's going to be the coalescence around Mashiach ben David from the tribe of Judah, from that family.
Okay, excellent. Now, we know there's a principle that zeh lu'umas zeh asa Elokim. So whenever you have a concept of any sort on a positive dimension, that same idea will exist in a negative dimension. So we have here a Mashiach ben Yosef, which is represented by the heart, and a Mashiach ben David that's represented by the mind. What is the the opposing force that represents those two concepts on what we'd call the sitra achara, on the other side? What's the heart and the mind of the other side? So here is what I think. There is a law that the Kohen Gadol has to wear a choshen, right? Rabbi, what's a breastplate, right?
A breastplate.
Okay. And what does the verse tell us about the breastplate? It has to be situated in a very specific place, and it can never move from that place. Rabbi Wilby? Velo yizach hachoshen. I forgot the exact term of the verse.
From his heart.
From his heart, right? The breastplate may never, ever be removed from the Kohen Gadol's heart. Now, I saw several commentaries make the following comment, which is that the word choshen is the letters ches, shin, nun, is the exact same letters as the word nachash, serpent. And the reason why the choshen can never move from the heart is because the choshen is there to rectify what the serpent did. So all the way back in time, in the Garden of Eden, the serpent was the one who instigated all of sin. And he did that by manipulating the heart, right? So he brought all kinds of foreign desires into man, and he led man's heart astray. And that gets rectified through the choshen, which is the same letters as nachash, and therefore it can never leave the heart. So if you were to ask me what represents the heart of evil, I would say the nachash, right? Now,
the snake.
If you were to ask me what represents the mind of evil, I would point you to a Vilna Gaon, which I found. I found it in Parshas Mishpatim, but it was just being quoted, so I don't know where it's originally written. And he writes that we are taught that the akrev, the scorpion, is more potent than the nachash. And he explains that the word akrev is the letters be'ikr, even though it's missing a yud, but the word be'ikr. So there's a term called a kofar be'ikr, which means a heretic of the highest level, someone who denies God's existence, but he really denies it. He says the akrev represents the kofar be'ikr, and that's worse than the nachash. Why? So I think it's because the nachash is someone who leads your heart astray. So, it's a tough world out there, and there's a lot of challenges that can overwhelm your emotion. And many of us succumb to those temptations every now and again. That's not good, but it will never make you a kofar be'ikr. To be a kofar be'ikr, a heretic, you have to intellectually deny God. It's an intellectual pursuit, which is much worse than an emotional one. So if you were to ask me what represents the mind, on the other side, on the evil side, I would say the akrev. So the force of nachash and akrev is really the force of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. What Mashiach ben Yosef is for kedusha, the nachash is for tumah. What Mashiach ben David is for kedusha, the akrev is for tumah. Okay, so now let's go back to the story with Yosef and his brothers. They throw him into a pit. Now here's a question that I've had since kindergarten. which is they say, we don't want to kill him. That's not nice. Who wants to kill their brother? We're just going to take him and throw him into a pit that's full of poisonous snakes and scorpions. Well, that's not so helpful. Here is what I think, and I think this is a really cool answer. Snakes and scorpions mean spiritual snakes and scorpions. And here's what happens. When Yosef and Yehuda are together, when Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David are together, their forces are together, the power of their opposing forces, the snake and the scorpion, cannot exist. Because for the Sitra Achara, for the other side to have any sort of power or influence, it needs to be in a vacuum where positive spirituality should have been. This is a basic principle in Kabbalah. Where there is Kedusha will dispel Tumah, right? Light dispels dark. Dark does not dispel light, right? If you have a room that's light and a room that's dark, you open the door, the dark will become light, not vice versa. So the dark side cannot influence the light side can influence the dark side. So if snakes and scorpions, which are coming from the dark side, are coming into existence, that means there's some sort of vacuum in the Kedusha. And what happened was like this. So long as Yosef and Yehuda were together as brothers, that pit did not have snakes and scorpions in it because the snakes and scorpions had no place. Snakes and scorpions are the corresponding force of Yosef and Yehuda. The moment they threw Yosef into the pit and they severed their ties with Yosef, and now there's an absolute divide between Yosef and Yehuda, the snakes and the scorpions came into existence. That is what I think. Is that not absolutely brilliant? Oh, it will be.
It is. What can I say? So they materialized once the break, the schism between Joseph and Judah, who was the one who threw him into the pit. Really, he was the mastermind of that.
Right.
So once that happens, then now the verse tells us that they threw him into the pit with no water and no water. Well, there's no water in it, but there are snakes and scorpions. That's kind of to indicate this divide, this separation between these two titans.
Now, the same thing happened with Yeravam and Rechavam, right? There's this divide between Yosef and Yehuda. And it happens in the month of Cheshvan. Now, this is going to be really cool. We know that the last time that happened with Yosef and his brothers, what came into being was Nechashim ve'Akrabim. On the month of Cheshvan, whose zodiac sign is Akrev, think of the word Cheshvan, Ches, Shin, Vav, Nun. If I were to rearrange those letters, it would say Nachash, Ve, right? Nachash and a Vav. So if I were to say the month and its governing zodiac sign, it would be Nachash, Ve, Akrev. Right? Those letters are there. Cheshvan, Akrev is Nachash ve'Akrev. Those come into existence, those powers come into existence during this time, in this month, specifically because that's when there was this divide between Yeravam, i.e. Mashiach ben Yosef, and Rechavam, i.e. Mashiach ben David. So this month and its zodiac sign are the Nechashim and Akravim that lived in that bar. They are what come into existence when Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David do not operate the way they should.
In what month did the brothers sell Yosef?
Oh, I wish I knew.
Do we know?
I wish I knew. I don't know. Let's say it's Cheshvan.
If you had to guess, it was the month of Cheshvan.
Okay. Now, another very obscure part of that story of the Nechashim and the Akravim is, where did the rabbis get that from? So this is one of the most perplexing drushos. The verse says they threw him into a pit that had no water in it. V'barek ein bo mayim. Okay, which that in itself is a strange redundancy. It was empty and it had no water. Okay, obviously. And Chazal say something bizarre. They say, oh, there's no water. There must have been snakes and scorpions. Right? Mayim ein bo, nechashim v'akravim yesh bo. There was no water. There must have been snakes and scorpions. And from there we learn that Yosef was in this dangerous pit that was full of snakes and scorpions. So what in the world? How did they derive that? You could say there was no water, and therefore there was baseball bats and hockey sticks, right? I mean, how do you know there's no water, therefore there's snakes and scorpions? So listen to this. This is absolutely incredible. You guys are going to be the only people on planet Earth who are going to truly understand this chazal. There is a medrash Tanchum in Parshas Bereishis. We just this last week's parsha. And it quotes a verse in Yeshaya that says, Ashreichem zorei al kol mayim. Praiseworthy are those who plant upon the water. Mishalche regal hashar v'chamar. And they, I don't even know how to translate, they escort the foot of the ox and the donkey. Okay, strange sounding verse. Says the Medrash, who are these planters upon the water? Elu oske Torah shenimshalu lamayim. That is a metaphor for people who learn Torah. Ashreichem zarei al kol mayim are people who learn Torah. Great. Who's this shar and chamar? Mishalche regal hashar zeh Mashiach ben Yosef. Escorters of the ox is referring to Mashiach ben Yosef, because Yosef is always referred to as a shar. Many times in the verse, Bechar shar haderlo, Bertzonam ikru shar. Yosef is frequently referred to as an ox. V'chamar, says the Medrash, zeh Mashiach ben David. Shenemar ani v'rochev al chamar. This is mind-blowing. What it's saying is like this. Ashreichem zari al kol mayim. Praiseworthy are those who plant upon the water, i.e. those who study Torah. Those people are escorting the shar together with the chamor. Mashiach ben Yosef together with Mashiach ben David. What they're saying here is, when you have water, when you have Torah, then you have a unity between the shar and the chamor. You have a unity between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. That's what this measure is telling you. There's no way around that. So what really the measure is revealing to us is, how do you have a divide between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David when there is an absence of water? When there is an absence of Torah, there's the divide between the shar and the chamar. When the Torah is there, then you have Mishalche Regal Ashar v'Chamar, you have the unity of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. V'habar reik ein bo mayim means there was a lack of Torah. There was a lack of Torah, that means there's a lack of unity between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. That says the Medrash. Says Chazal, really? There's a lack of unity between Yosef and David, between Mashiach ben Yosef and David? So you know what that means? That means there must have been snakes and scorpions. Because that's what happens. When you lose the power in the good side, that allows space for the opposing power in the evil side, in the Sitra Achara, to come into fruition. So that's what happens. There's no Mayim, there's no Torah. You lose the unity of the Shar and the Chamar, and in comes the Nachash v'Akriv. Rabbi Wilby, do you understand?
Absolute genius. What can we say?
You guy, how many people are on this chat? Like 6?
Bravo.
So like 6 people on planet Earth understand, finally.
So far, but we're going to publicize it.
Hopefully. Okay, but now let's try to understand this. Why? Why does Torah have that power? Why does Torah have the power?
Torah is the glue.
Torah is the key. Torah is the answer to resolving this tension between Yosef and Yehuda. But why? So here's what I think, and this is very simple. Again, there's the Rosh, there's the head, and then there's the heart, and there's a division between the two. But there's a Gemara in Tainus on Daf Daled Amud Aleph, which says, Rava says, if you see a Talmid Chacham who's getting really animated, he's getting really worked up, don't think he's a temperamental guy. Oraisa merascha lei. It's the Torah that's heating him up. And here's the words of Rashi. I'm going to read to you. Sheyesh lo rochav leiv mitoch toraso umesim lelibo yoser mishar b'nei adam. He says, this Talmid Chacham, this learned man, his heart is wider, and he takes things to a heart with greater potency than other people do. Torah widens your heart. Now, Rabbi Welby, I don't know about you, but when I learn, I don't put the Gemara on my chest, right? I look at it with my eyes, and my mind is what is processing the material in front of me. Torah, there's no question, begins as an intellectual pursuit. But somehow that has a direct impact on your heart, so much so that it opens it up, and as Rashi says, Umesim lelibo yoser mishar b'nei adam. A Talmid Chacham's heart is bigger than anyone else's. The more Torah you have, the greater your heart is. So there's this direct conduit, there's this direct path between the mind and the heart that somehow Torah has access to. Okay. Having said all of that, let's go back to our questions. Yeravam removed his tefillin when presenting his opposition to Shlomo. He was Heirim Yado. That's the term the verse uses. Lifted his hand. Now, I don't want to argue with Rashi. I looked at Rashi on the Gemara there. He definitely does not work with this Mahalach, but I think we could say our own novel Mahalach. We know that the Tefillin Shel Yad are supposed to be situated directly next to the heart. They have a direct impact on the heart. We are not allowed to talk between putting on a Tefillin Shel Yad and a Tefillin Shel Rosh, because we have to have this connection. We're trying to forge this relationship between the heart and the mind, because the Tefillin Shel Rosh are connected the moach, they're connected the brain. Yeravam removed his Tefillin Shel Yad. He was Heirim Yado, I want to suggest. Even though it's not clear that it means the Tefillin Shel Yad, I want to suggest it means the Tefillin Shel Yad, to say, the heart is no longer with you. I am taking the heart with me. The Tefillin Shel Yad no longer belongs in your kingdom, it's coming with me. Why did Rechavim travel to Shechem to be coronated?
Well, I think you could say regardless, whichever tefillin he took off, there's a separation.
There's a separate. That's true.
One tefillin is on, one tefillah is on, one's off.
Exactly. One's on. Okay, you're right. You could say it either way. Why did Rechavim travel to Shechem to be coronated? That's a really big question. I say Rechavim knew exactly what's going on. He knew that what he was going through with this divide between him and Yeravam was really rooted in the fight of Yosef and his brothers. And that happened in Shechem. So he said, look, the divide between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David began in Shechem, and I want to make amends. I want to go back to where it started, and that way we can fix this, right? Because what Yeravam's doing isn't new. It was really what happened back in the day with Yosef and his brothers. And so if I want to make it better, if I want to correct that mistake, then I have to go back there, because that's where it all started. What did Rechavim mean when he said, if you guys don't get out of here, I am going to come at you with scorpions? I think this is fascinating. Of course he's going to come at them with scorpions. What he's telling them is like this: if you rebel against me, so there's going to be a divide between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David, and we all know what's going to happen. Nechashim and Akravim are going to come into being, because that's what happens. In the vacuum of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David comes Nechashim and Akravim. Okay, now, how does that line itself up? The Mashiach ben Yosef people will get the Nachash. The Mashiach ben David people will get the scorpion. And the scorpion is more powerful than the Nachash, we know. So Rechavim says, you guys are idiots. If you fight with me, all that means is that I'm going to get the power of the scorpion and I'll kill you. And that's what he means, that he's going to come at them with scorpions. Why was Yeravam so terrified of the Hakel experience? I think the answer is because Hakel, and Rav Hutner speaks about this a lot, Hakel was really kind of like a repetition of the entire Matan Torah. The entirety of the Jewish people come, everyone comes, man, woman, and child, even an infant, a newborn comes to hear Torah. It is the greatest, most awesome Torah study moment of Torah study ever for the Jewish people to experience. It's once every 7 years. And listen to the words of the Chinuch. He says that they come l'shmoa divrei Torah, to hear the words of Torah, shehi kol ikarenu v'hodenu v'sefartenu. V'yachnisu hakol b'libam cheshka. And everyone takes the Torah at that moment, because it's just such an incredibly overwhelming moment of unity, and they take it to their heart. So I think what Yeravam knew was that this Torah was going to overwhelm everything, because he wanted to be a king. And the moment the mind is able to connect with the heart through the power of Torah, so the mind will overrule the heart. Right? Because once you have Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David together, ultimately it's going to be Mashiach ben David that's going to be the primary king. Right? We all know that. Ultimately it's Mashiach ben David that's the primary king. Mashiach ben Yosef is only so long as it's not united with Mashiach ben David. But he knew that the force of the Torah would be so powerful at Hakel that there will be no way he could ever overcome it. So at all costs, he had to stop Hakel. And the way the verse refers to the month of Cheshvan, he says, "HaChodesh asher bada mi libo." It's the month that came from his heart. And we asked, like, that's a weird way to refer to it, but it's not a weird way to refer to it at all. It was the month of his heart, meaning he was creating like a new hakel. That's not a hakel of the mind, it's a hakel of the heart, because we don't want the mind. The mind is Mashiach ben David, and I am the Mashiach ben Yosef king. So it was the Chodesh of Libo. And we mentioned the Bnei Yissaschar at the beginning, that the Beis HaMikdash is going to be rebuilt in the month of Cheshvan. And I think it's because the month of Cheshvan is when this all went down, right? This is when the divide between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David happened. But that's also when the tikkun will happen. That's when we're going to correct this mistake and bring Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David back together and allow for the Beis HaMikdash to be rebuilt. And how do we bring them back together? As we said earlier, it's only when there's a lack of Torah that we allow for this divide to happen. But through Limud Torah, through Hakel, through studying Torah, and through renewed commitment to Torah, that's how you bring the mind and the heart together and allow for Mashiach to come in its totality. May that be B'mehera B'yameinu.
Wow, absolutely genius. Bravo. It was an incredible presentation. And I love that the bottom line is you got to study Torah with great intensity. And that's the theme of the month. This is the month where we begin the depths of the winter. We're going to change the clock because it's going to get nice and dark. And that's what we do. We burn the midnight oil of Torah study. And that's how we repair and mend the grand divide. That's how we take those two sticks, those two blocks of wood, and fuse them back together. I had a few thoughts here, just as you're speaking, that I would just run your way. The Talmud says, I believe, that every Talmud Chacham, every Torah scholar, she'eino nokem v'noter kenachash, that does not avenge, does not take revenge like a serpent, like a snake, is not a Talmud Chacham. So I think that may be germane to your point. Maybe if I could make some commentary that if the heart corresponds to the to Joseph and to the snake, and someone's a Torah scholar, but if it's just in their head, it's just in the Yehuda realm, it's just in the Contra Scorpion realm, and they don't actually bring it down to the heart, it's not a full, they can't be classified as a full Talmud Chacham, as a full Torah scholar, because they're lacking a critical component. That was just one idea I wanted to add here. And then I was also reminded, we know that Messiah, the whole idea of Messiah is the fusion of these two components of our nation that have been broken apart. If I'm not mistaken, I actually looked it up over here as you were speaking. The Talmud says that there are three things that come behesach hadas, that come when people are not paying attention. And one of them is Messiah, and another one that seems totally out of place is the akrav, is the scorpion.
Oh, wow. That's great. Oh, that's great.
There you go. I'm happy I added something
come
here.
On. I can't believe I missed that.
It's a layup. You missed the layup. Yeah, 97a in the book of Sanhedrin.
That is upsetting. Okay.
Three come. We have to re-record this. What can we say?
Yeah.
Three come.
Well, I hope you're still recording. Can't you put it? You can't
Yeah, I'm still recording. But no one's listening anymore. Right? Everyone's already tuned out. It's the old joke. Everyone's already tuned out. This was absolutely exquisite. This is the month. But wait, why would it be the month of Akrav? It's the month of the scorpion, because that's what's going to be unleashed. That's what gets unleashed when these two are separated. Is that how we're reading it?
Yeah, but it's also Cheshvan, which is Nachash Veh. So in other words, there's both.
Oh, okay, it's both. Now, isn't there another name for, isn't it also called Mar Cheshvan?
Right, so that's a good question. So Sean just messaged me that question. I don't know. This whole Mar thing really drives me crazy. It's actually more of a halachic problem. You know that, because when you read a ksuba or a get, you have to know is it Cheshvan or Mar Cheshvan. It's a complicated. It's actually a very technical discussion. Apparently many say that the month is really Merech Shvan, which is like Persian for the 8th month. So it's not even Mar Cheshvan, it's Merech Shvan.
But can we maybe speculate that we said that The word Cheshvan is Nachash Ve, or the letters if you unscramble them. It's also the letters Choshen, right?
Choshen, right. Exactly. With a
And maybe
right.
what we could say is that is that there's a mar means bitter, right? There's right now we're in the bitter version of this month because we're still living in the world of the schism, and therefore it's Mar Cheshvan. But it's not really the name. We know that the ultimate destiny of this month is for the fusion, the rectification, and the reunion of these disparate parts.
Right. Okay. I'll take it.
Total speculation. Wow, this was incredible. I want to do this now for next month. Thank you so much, Rabbi Botnick, for this exquisite presentation. I'm going to have to, once I gather my brains from the floor, and I'm going to go through the notes that you sent me and piece it all together. Absolutely exquisite, wonderful. I thank you so much for coming and sharing your amazing teachings with us. Your email address from last time, it's still the same email address?
I believe so, yeah.
What was that? Remind me.
My name, so Botnick, followed by letters SM, like Sam and Michael or whatever.
Mar Cheshvan. at gmail.com.
At gmail.com.
Send all your questions to him because I don't have any answers. Okay, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to hearing your questions and your comments.